Chapter 274. A big customer. Princess Juju bounced off the sofa after listening to Hua Yuao's statement, and she stared at him with eyes overcome with fear. The news that Hua Yuao had just relayed to Princess Juju was simply too astounding, and this was the same for the Dalu Empire, a sect formed by evil soul masters, a sect that possessed an ultimate Douluo, and a transcendent Douluo, and a sect that was under the protection of another nation hostile to them. Shu Juju's typical stability and composure began to waver as she panicked after listening to this piece of incredibly bad news. Are you for real? Princess Juju stared at Hua Yuao as she subconsciously clenched her fists. Hua Yuao heaved a faint sigh and said, how can I lie about something like this, and how can I even succeed in doing so? You can observe when the competition begins, and you will see things for yourself. Princess Juju's face changed as she stumbled backwards, and her calves pressed against the sofa. She lost her center of gravity and collapsed back onto it. That's impossible, just impossible. How can evil soul masters possess a transcendent Douluo, and even an ultimate Douluo? That's absolutely impossible. Have you seen it with your own eyes? Hua Yuao knew that this piece of news was hard to believe. Furthermore, he was practically telling the Dalu Empire that disaster had befallen them. Hua Yuao lowered his voice and asked, have you ever heard of the Scorpion Tiger Douluo, Jiang? Scorpion Tiger Douluo? Are you talking about the half-evil soul master, that Scorpion Tiger Douluo? Hasn't he been missing for many years? Princess Juju had already reconciled with this piece of news, but she would rather be in denial of what she believed to be true. Hua Yuao answered, the Scorpion Tiger Douluo has already appeared in Radiant City, and we just met him in the measurement room. Furthermore, eldest senior brother has been hurt by people from the Holy Ghost Church, and he's barely hanging on. I hope that you can calm down, princess, and that you can treat this substantial problem seriously. You have to relay this information back to the Dalu Empire as quickly as possible, so that the Dalu Empire can be prepared to respond. Shu Juju was a lady, but the fact that she had such a status within the Dalu Empire meant she had to have some outstanding qualities. She tried her best to control her emotions after hearing Hua Yuao's reminder, and she nodded her head. All right, please go on. Hua Yuao said, the Sun Moon Empire can be considered our mutual enemy. The war hasn't begun, but anyone can see that the day will come when the Sun Moon Empire cannot hold themselves back anymore. Furthermore, the Holy Ghost Church is made up of evil soul masters and can be treated as the collective enemy of all other soul masters in the world. The Scorpion Tiger Douluo, Jiang, is the transcendent Douluo that I have seen. I obliterated one of the Holy Ghost Church's branches when I was on exchange at the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy, and that episode gave me proof that this sect exists. We were ambushed by the Scorpion Tiger Douluo on our way back to Shrek. I wouldn't be here today if there hadn't been powerful individuals from Shrek Academy there with me during that episode. The Scorpion Tiger Douluo wasn't the strongest one in the force that came to ambush me. However, there was another name that I'm sure you've heard before, Princess, the Dragon Emperor Douluo, Long Xiaya. Shu Juju's eyes became a little slack after she heard that name. She had barely managed to calm herself down before this, and her expression drastically changed once more in the next moment. The one who possesses the Darkness Holy Dragon, and the one who was once known as one of the twin Holy Dragons of Black and White, the Dragon Emperor Douluo, Long Xiaya. But isn't he more than 200 years old if he's still alive? He hasn't appeared on the continent in the past 100 years. How is this possible? Hua Yuao forced to laugh and said, I wish that this was all impossible, and that nothing like this had ever happened. However, the truth is right in front of us, and we cannot force ourselves not to believe it. Our Academy's elder son was there that day, but even elder son was one generation beneath Long Xiaya. I trust that you know that my teacher was the radiant holy dragon of the twin holy dragons of Black and White, and he was the dragon god Douluo. Long Xiaya shared a reputation with my teacher when he was still alive, and now that my teacher has passed, nobody in Shrek Academy has the ability to single-handedly hold back the Darkness Holy Dragon. Even though the Dragon Emperor Douluo isn't an evil soul master, he's still part of the Holy Ghost Church. Furthermore, he's not the sect leader, he's only one of the sect's elders. There's someone out there who can command people like the Dragon Emperor Douluo and the Scorpion Tiger Douluo. It's not hard to imagine how powerful the Holy Ghost Church is. Shu Juju's face was a little pale. This piece of news was just too important, yet she had had no idea about it before today. This was far too important for the Dalu Empire. Thank you, Yuao. Thank you for telling me everything. This is just too important, and I will immediately send someone to verify these things. The Empire will not forget this contribution and favor if we find this information to be true, and we will definitely reward you accordingly. Shu Juju's thoughts were a little messed up, and she wasn't in her right state of mind, but she didn't forget about her promise. Even though Hua Yuao was far less valuable in his current crippled state than he had been back then, she could guess that Hua Yuao wouldn't remain like this from the look on his face. Hua Yuao lowered his voice and said, this isn't that much of a contribution. From our perspective, the Sun Moon Empire and the Holy Ghost Church can possibly become an enemy that we have to face together. Perhaps, that day is inevitable. You should be able to tell from my description, princess, that nobody has the ability to challenge them alone. We can only forge as many alliances as we can in order to have the strength to challenge them. Shu Juju nodded her head silently. If the Sun Moon Empire possessed an ultimate Douluo that had been around for 200 years, that person alone could be apocalyptic for the Dalu Empire. An ultimate Douluo had enough power to take down more than 10 titled Douluo at a whim, and once the Dalu Empire's top-level individuals had fallen, there would no longer be anything they could do against the Sun Moon Empire, and they would be rolled over. Shu Juju asked, do you have other information, Yuao? If you have other important intel, I can purchase it directly from you. You can ask for any price you want. Her impression of Hua Yuao was a lot better than before. Just as Bebe had said, it would be a lot easier for them to obtain the princess's trust with the information about the Holy Ghost Church as their main game. Shu Juju didn't even consider whether Hua Yuao was deceiving her. First, he hailed from Shrek Academy. Secondly, this piece of news was simply too astounding. Furthermore, Hua Yuao mentioned that the Holy Ghost Church had sent people to participate in the competition, and it would be too easy to expose a lie. Therefore, she completely believed him. She would immediately send people to obtain evidence once Hua Yuao left, and then she would relay this information back to her empire. Hua Yuao said, I don't have other intel. We've only developed these speculations after we just realized that the Holy Ghost Church is also participating in the competition. We're here to find you because we can't afford to delay any longer. The Holy Ghost Church dares to parade around in broad daylight, and that goes to show that they're unafraid of threats from any other force. That also means that the Sun Moon Empire won't be holding back for much longer. Shu Juju nodded and said, you're right, this is too important. Let's do it this way, Yuao. You guys can return for now, and I will immediately settle this and pass this information back to the Empire so that my brother can make a decision. If this is true, I'm afraid we'll have to pay a personal visit to Shrek Academy. Hua Yuao said, don't be hasty, princess. I have something else for you. If you're interested, our cooperation can begin right away. Hua Yuao gestured to Wang Donga behind him as he spoke. Wang Donga raised her left hand. The starlight sapphire ring that Hua Yuao typically wore was now on her left hand, and 6 streaks of starlight glowed on the ring surface. Shu Juju was momentarily stunned, and a tinge of vigilance immediately appeared in her eyes. Right at this moment, a human figure appeared soundlessly behind Shu Juju. Hua Yuao and Wang Donga only discovered her existence when she appeared, and Hua Yuao had completely failed to sense her appearance before this, even with his current spiritual power. A titled Douluo? Hua Yuao asked in surprise. An old woman had appeared behind Shu Juju. She looked like she was at least 80 years old, and her hair was all white. She was clad in a flowing red dress that radiated in tandem with her snowy white hair, but her eyes appeared exceptionally dark and sinister. Greenish blue light burst from her eyes in all directions, and she unleashed a forceful and stifling aura from the moment she appeared. This aura wasn't targeted at Hua Yuao and Wang Donga. Instead, it filled up the entire room. Hua Yuao's expression didn't change at all in the face of such immense pressure. Faint purple light sparkled in his eyes as gentle spiritual undulations flowed outward and enveloped both him and Wang Donga inside. Hey! The old woman gasped in surprise, and there was now a hint of astonishment in her eyes as she stared at Hua Yuao. She could tell from his soul power undulations that this youth had but 5 soul rings, give or take, yet he could defend himself against her stifling aura. He didn't cower away or back off at all, and she couldn't even lock onto him. How could this be something that a 5-ring soul king could achieve? The old lady increased the pressure in the air after her initial flash of astonishment, and this pressure poured towards Hua Yuao from all directions. Hua Yuao didn't show any weakness at all, nor did he say a single word. Purple light circulated, and a diamond-like radiance gradually began to sparkle in his eyes. The purple light layer that was protecting them immediately became like the night sky, while stars dotted its surface. This tidal Douluo didn't stifle Hua Yuao's formidable spiritual power at all. Instead, it seemed as if Hua Yuao was pushing back against her. Hua Yuao's fighting strength paled in comparison to when he wasn't injured. However, his aura hadn't been weakened at all. Even Elder Sun had been astounded by his spiritual power, while the old woman was still quite a distance from Elder Sun's abilities. A virtual golden projection began to glimmer into view behind Hua Yuao's back. It was Wang Dong's looking girl's clothes, and the goddess of light immediately caused Hua Yuao's eyes to grow gentle and tender as they were filled with overwhelming love. His goddess of light's power was boosted by 30% as long as Wang Dong was beside him. That's enough, senior. Hua Yuao sighed calmly. The old woman grunted coldly as she took a step forward, and she was just about to attack when Shu Juju reached up to hold her back. Don't be like this, Grandma, you man. Yuao is our guest. The old woman squinted as she said, this fellow is a little abnormal. His spiritual power is far stronger than it should be. It's at a level that a soul king shouldn't possess. Let me take him down, Juju, and then you can interrogate him. Shu Juju said hurriedly, Grandma, you man. He really is our guest. We can't treat our guests like that. I'm sorry, Yuao. Grandma Yuman has been protecting me since I was a child, and she must have felt something dangerous from your storage-type soul tool, and that's the reason why she. Hua Yuao smiled faintly and said, it's all right. Since you have no interest in seeing what we have to offer, then we will take our leave so that we can prevent any misunderstandings. Let's go, Dong. Dong. Ahem, Wang Dong. Hua Yuan nearly forgot that Wang Donga was currently dressed in a guy's clothes, and calling her Donga now would sound extremely weird. Wang Donga glanced coldly at Shu Juju before she began to push Hua Yuao away in his wheelchair. Shu Juju's expression changed, and a hesitant and unsure look flashed across her face. The old woman in the red dress gave Shu Juju an inquisitive look. Shu Juju didn't hesitate for too long. She walked forward briskly and said, I'm sorry, Yuao. I was being too suspicious and oversensitive. I am deeply apologetic about what just happened, and I hope that the two of you can stay. Shu Juju had felt an acutely dangerous aura when Wang Donga flashed the starlight sapphire ring, and the aura did come from that ring. That meant that even the starlight sapphire's quality couldn't mask the dangerous aura contained within, and the aura immediately flowed out the moment Wang Donga infused some soul power inside. That was the reason why both she and the old lady in red had immediately reacted like they had. Thoughts ran through her head, and Shu Juju figured that Hua Yuao had no reason to harm her. It was just as he had said. Everyone was standing on the same line. They shared the same enemy, and the enemy of her enemy was her friend. What Hua Yuao wanted to show her was possibly dangerous, but it was unlikely that it was targeted towards her. Furthermore, Hua Yuao had just given them such important intel. She couldn't just turn him away just like that. The entire Shrek Academy was behind Hua Yuao. After all, Hua Yuao gestured to Wang Donga to tell her to stop, and turned his head around to look back at Shu Juju. I just want to remind you, princess, that all kinds of collaboration and teamwork has to be built on both parties trusting each other. If you don't trust me, then there's no need for any further cooperation, don't you think? Shu Juju stared at this youth who could only move one hand, and she felt as if she was staring at a sly and cunning negotiator. Why is he so difficult to deal with? His words were neither hot nor cold, and neither was he too gentle or too pushy. Hua Yuao's controlled and moderated rhythm made her feel as if she were being drawn in. It's no wonder that Shrek Academy has placed so much emphasis on him. Indeed, it's not just because of his fighting abilities. Shu Juju's thoughts stopped there, and she immediately readjusted herself. A sincere smile appeared on her face as she said, I'm sorry, Yuao. I'll apologize to you one more time. We were wrong about what happened just now. Please come back, and we can discuss our cooperation in further detail. What do you think? You're right to say that cooperation means we have to trust each other. I can tell from the important information that you've just relayed to me that you trust us. Don't worry, we will reciprocate no matter how we decide to cooperate in the future. How beautiful was that speech? Hua Yuao heaved a sigh of admiration inside as he gestured towards Wang Donga, and only then did Wang Donga turn his wheelchair back around. Hua Yuao said, show it to her. Don't worry, princess. We are also here, and you have this tidal Douluo to protect you. If something that can threaten your life shows up, won't we be burying ourselves, too? I may be in a bad state, but I'm not ready to leave this world yet. A teasing smile appeared on his face as he said that. Shu Juju blushed as she made a gesture to Wang Donga. She stole a few more glances at her at the same time. Wang Donga was still Wang Dong 5 years ago. Even though she had been extremely stunning back then, she was still a child. 5 years later, she had grown into an extremely handsome youth with a long and slender figure, flowing pinkish blue hair draped behind her back, and she was so handsome that she didn't have any imperfections at all. Princess Juju was still full of awe even though she had seen uncountable good-looking men before throughout her entire life. Wang Dong has a face that is so attractive that even girls will be envious of him, and Hua Yuan just gave him a strange look. Can they be? The look in Princess Juju's eyes became a little strange, and she cursed inside. What a waste. If such a handsome boy swings that way, Hua Yuao and Wang Donga didn't know that the princess was silently criticizing them. Wang Donga took 2 steps forward, and she reached out with her left hand toward a relatively spacious spot inside the room. This was only a second-tier room, but it was a lot better than the rooms Hua Yuao and others were staying in. The spacious living room was several hundred square meters in surface area, and there were bedrooms inside that weren't much smaller. This room was better in terms of both decorations and amenities than their room, and the place that Hua Yuao and the others were living in weren't even on the same scale. Brilliant blue light flickered, and a large item appeared before Shu Juju. Even though she sounded very trusting, she still took a few steps back subconsciously so that she could keep her distance from it, while the red-dressed tidal Douluo stood in front of her, prepared to react against anything. They quickly saw what the item was. It was a strangely shaped metal item, and Shu Juju could feel that this was a soul tool. Even though the Dalu Empire's soul tool research paled in comparison to the Sun Moon Empire, the Dalu Empire had been placing a lot of effort on soul tool research over the years after they realized the gap between them. The only difference was that they lacked top-tier soul engineers, and their research standards were also greatly inferior, so there was no way they could catch up to the Sun Moon Empire. Even so, Shu Juju had seen quite a few soul tools, yet she had never seen nor heard about the thing before her. The entire soul tool took up about 10 square meters of space. There was a square metal base beneath it, and this base was the thing that took up 10 square meters. There was a belt beneath the metal base, and it seemed as if this soul tool could be pushed around. One could tell that it was quite heavy just by looking at it. There was a thick cylinder on top of the metal base, located in the center. This cylinder connected the base to another rectangular metal piece above it, and this rectangular metal component was about 2.5 meters long, about 1.5 meters wide, and quite flat, with 18 black holes on one side. It seemed like an enormous metal box, and gave people an extremely peculiar feeling. The metal box's dark body was nowhere close to being visually appealing. This is... Shu Juju glanced at Hua Yuao with inquisitive eyes. Hua Yuao answered, this is a weapon that the Tang Sect produces. We have named it the Juga Divine Crossbow Cannon. Juga Divine Crossbow Cannon? Is it a soul tool? Princess Juju was clearly unfamiliar with this name. Hua Yuao nodded and said, more accurately put, it's a stationary soul tool. It can only be considered a Class 4 soul tool, but the effects that it can achieve on the battlefield cannot be matched by normal Class 4 soul tools. The reason being that it's a stationary soul tool. You should know something about stationary soul tools, don't you? Princess Juju nodded and said, the force of stationary soul tools mainly comes from their shells. The cannon itself can only determine the firing distance and accuracy. Does your soul tool fire 18 shells at the same time? Hua Yuao said, there are different settings. You can fire everything at once, or you can then fire one by one. Our Juga Divine Crossbow Cannon has several salient features. Please allow me to introduce them to you. Firstly, even though it's just a Class 4 stationary soul tool, it can reach a distance comparable to a Class 6 soul tool, because it contains some of the Tang Sect's secret techniques. You can carry out your own field tests after this. Princess Juju's eyes sparkled. A Class 4 soul tool that had the same propulsion force as a Class 6 soul tool. This was quite an impressive invention. It also also meant that this soul tool only required a Class 4 soul engineer to operate it, and Class 4 soul engineers were on completely different levels than Class 6 soul engineers. It was comparable to the gap between a soul ancestor and a soul emperor. 1,000 soul ancestors were probably still weaker than 100 soul emperors, and this point alone had already attracted the princess. Huo continued. Our Juga Divine crossbow cannon can carry 48 shells, and they're all under the base. It can automatically chamber shells during the firing process, and you will only need to reload the weapon after all 48 shells have been fired. Reloading is simple. Wang Dong, please demonstrate for the princess. All right. Wang Dong pressed on the cannon's side with her right hand, and a capo-like holder sprang out. She shook the holder rapidly, and a magazine gradually slid out from beneath the holder's base. The magazine opened up from behind, and everyone could see the 48 soul cannon shells chambered inside. Every cannon shell was about a meter long, and every shell was about 20 centimeters in diameter. The entire magazine was withdrawn from the holder, using the 4 wheels beneath the magazine, so one didn't need to use too much force to push the magazine around. She quickly pushed the magazine back to its original position, before she closed it and returned the holder to where she took it from and concluded the reloading process. The entire effort took about 2 minutes. Shu Juoju calculated mentally, a stationary soul cannon that can fire 48 rounds before reloading, and a Class 4 soul tool with a Class 6 soul tool's firing range. 48 continuous rounds packs quite a punch. Just as Huo said, this soul tool is definitely a powerful weapon on the battlefield. The Sun Moon Empire's army is only equipped with Class 5 stationary soul cannons. The biggest difference between a stationary soul cannon and a normal soul cannon was firing range. Normal soul cannons had extremely limited firing range, because the soul cannons were powered purely by soul power, which was converted into force to launch the cannon shells. However, stationary soul cannons were different. They relied on the stationary soul tool to launch their shells. A Class 4 soul tool was worth about 100 of a Class 6 soul tool. Shu Juju calculated continuously in her head, and her eyes began to glow brighter and brighter, beginning to understand more about this metal object's practical uses and effects. Huo continued. The Juga Divine crossbow cannon that we have devised as of now is more suitable for installation upon city walls to defend the city, or it can be installed to defend fortresses. Both uses will be extremely effective. If you wish to equip your army with this item, we will come up with a mobile version. Princess Juju immediately proposed the question that she was most concerned about. So, what about the price? How much is it? Huo smiled and said, this is power comparable to a Class 6 soul tool's power, so it should be valued like a Class 6 soul tool. Truthfully, it can be considered a Class 6 soul tool, except it doesn't take as much to use it. Shu Juju smiled and said, I'm sure that's not it. I believe it doesn't take that many resources to craft it, either. Furthermore, stationary soul tools have always been known to burn holes through our wallets. This cannon can fire 48 stationary cannon shells, so every round will bring me a lot of heartache. Your Juga Divine crossbow cannon is a little too expensive. You guys are also from the Dalu Empire. Are you trying to reap profits from war? That means this will no longer be a cooperation. Huo smiled and shook his head. No, princess. We are already very sincere. Stationary soul tools are indeed expensive, but they are also most important in the wars that we will have to face in the future. The Tang Sect has always been fair, so this price will never change. The price will be the same even if we are selling to Shrek City. Our sincerity lies in the supply priority we give our clients. If you're willing to complete the deal, you will become our first client outside Shrek City, and you will receive supply priority from us for 1 year. Shu Juju was momentarily stunned. She couldn't help but laugh as she said, I didn't expect you to be such a good businessman, and you even know about supply priority. Do you really believe that this soul tool will receive excessive demand? There must be a limit to the number of soul tools like this we can purchase, because we have to ensure that we have enough cannon shells to make sure that these expensive soul tools can unleash their full potential. Furthermore, we need to have enough soul masters. The truth is that the Dalu Empire doesn't lack soul masters. Since this soul tool is also considered a Class 6 soul tool, we might as well directly purchase Class 6 stationary soul tools. There are quite a few soul emperors within the Dalu Empire. The smile on Huo's face didn't change. He wasn't worried at all. If the princess wasn't interested in his Juga Divine crossbow cannon at all, she wouldn't be negotiating with him. The harder she haggled, the more interested she was in the soul tool. But can you find a Class 6 stationary soul cannon that can fire 48 times continuously? I'm afraid it's difficult to find one that can fire even 3 in a row. Both our magazines and our firing mechanisms are exclusive to us, and this soul tool comes with a self-destruct mechanism as well, so it can't be replicated. One Juga Divine crossbow cannon can rival the firing efficiency of 4 Class 6 stationary soul cannons. Of course, we have to admit that this cannon can only be considered a Class 4 soul cannon in terms of material quality, and thus its durability cannot compare to that of a Class 6 stationary soul cannon. Shu Juju stared at Huo in astonishment. This was the first time she had seen a seller openly discussing the product's weaknesses and shortcomings. Huo said, integrity always comes first for the Tang Sect, no matter who we're dealing with, and we will never hide any weaknesses or cons that our products have. Furthermore, you could be considered one of our biggest clients. Shu Juju smiled and said, then aren't you afraid that I'll lowball you? The price you have quoted isn't considered low at all. Furthermore, from a business perspective, there has never been a rule where the seller will always get the first price that he or she quotes. Huo replied, I'm not sure how other people do their business, but upholding our integrity and providing top quality products has always been of the utmost importance to the Tang Sect. Shu Juju stared deeply into his eyes. There was a look of regret on her face as she said, that's a pity. We can only think about this a little more. Huo wasn't worried at all. He smiled and said, of course, I believe this deal will be a big one if it comes through, so it's natural for you to put in a little more thought, princess. We'll take our leave. Then, we will give this Juga Divine crossbow cannon to you, and you will understand after field testing it that I haven't exaggerated anything at all. However, if you miss this opportunity today, and if other clients step into the picture, I'm afraid we cannot reserve purchase priority for you anymore. I need to make this clear so that I can absolve myself and so that you won't hold it against me when it happens. Shu Juju was very familiar with the art of negotiation. She thought to herself, do you think I'll fall for your tricks? She stood up and placed her palms on top of one another on her abdomen. She tilted her head towards Huo, and there was no denying her nobility and elegance as a princess. That's all right. If we decide that this soul tool is something we need, we will contact the Tang Sect as soon as possible. Huo replied, okay, there are 2 things that I wish to remind you about. You can attach milk bottles to this soul tool when you want to use it, and you can use it directly. Class 4 milk bottles are enough. Otherwise, a soul engineer can use it by infusing soul power from the left side of its base, where the 2 palm grooves are located. The second thing I wish to remind you about is that I have installed a self-destruct mechanism to this Juga Divine crossbow cannon so that we can protect our technology. If anybody attempts to take it apart, then there will be a formidable explosion. Please watch out for that, princess. Shu Juju took exception to his words and said, seems like your sect has placed a lot of emphasis on this soul tool. If you're worried, you can take it back, and you can send someone into the Dalu Empire to carry out experiments and field tests for us. Don't you think it's a bit too excessive to use milk bottles to operate a Class 4 soul tool like this? Milk bottles were considered one of the most valuable and expensive soul tools amongst those of the same level, and this was the same for all soul tools beneath Class 7. Huo smiled and said, perhaps. I have already given this soul tool to you, so how can I take it back? Donga, take back our milk bottle, and we can bid our farewell to the princess. All right. Wang Donga took a few steps towards the Juga Divine crossbow cannon's base and pressed on a spot. A metal box sprang out, and Wang Donga retrieved a peculiarly shaped milk bottle that resembled a cannon shell and stored it inside her starlight sapphire storage ring. Wang Donga wasn't doing everything very quickly, so Shu Juju could clearly see that she had never seen a milk bottle like that before. She could tell from its size that it wasn't as simple as a typical Class 4 milk bottle. This was a soul tool that came attached with a mechanism specifically meant to attach milk bottles, and the milk bottle had also been specially crafted for this purpose. Was there a need for this? There must be something wrong if things weren't normal or typical. Shu Juju was still escorting them out when she asked subconsciously, will the Juga Divine crossbow cannon have any special effects if it is used with a milk bottle? Huo and Wang Dong were already at the door, and Princess Juju's servant opened it for them. Huo said plainly, there won't be any special effects, except you don't need soul masters to operate the soul tool. Oh. Goodbye, then, Shu Juju answered and sent Huo and Wang Donga out of the room. She definitely wouldn't go any further to send them off with her status, and her servant closed the door behind them. Huo's words echoed in Shu Juju's mind as she muttered under her breath. You don't need soul masters to operate the soul tool. What does that mean? You don't need soul masters to. The princess's body suddenly froze as if a thought burst into her head, and an astonished look came over her face while her face lost all color. That's not possible. Wang Dongba wasn't pushing Hua Yua very quickly outside, and Hua Yua was slowly withdrawing his extended fingers as if he were counting down. 5, 4, 3, wait. A high-pitched exclamation echoed through the corridor, and Princess Juju suddenly raced out from her room and blocked their path in a few brisk steps. Wang Dongba stared at the concerned look on her face with amusement and thought to herself, Hua Yua was so cunning. Shu Juju's breathing was clearly a little rushed as she stared at Hua Yua with her charming blue eyes. You said that you don't need soul masters to operate this soul tool. What does that mean? Hua Yua seemed a little blank as he replied. That's what it means. Shu Juju took a deep breath. Are you saying that? For some reason, her heartbeat began to race, and an indescribable premonition coursed through her mind. However, this premonition was just so immense, to the point where she could barely control herself anymore. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.